Hey y'all, welcome back. Episode 2 of our Jiu-Jitsu podcast. We haven't really come up with a name yet. We're reading a lot of responses. They've been pretty good. I'm interested to see some more. And when we have a name, we'll let you all know, okay? Today on the podcast, I have my brother, Fernie. He's been training with me, helps me teach here at the classes. And so he's been on the channel before. And we're going to dive deep into some really good questions I have for him. So welcome, Fernie.
Thank you for having me.
You ready to do this?
Let's do it.
All right. So you've been competing a lot. What drove you to compete? Like what kind of pushed you to compete? Because a lot of people don't like to compete, as you've seen in Jiu-Jitsu.
So a big reason why I compete is because I don't like losing. And I know it sounds kind of straightforward, but well, you know this, but to all you out there, basically I competed in track, played football, did other sports, and I was just very in tune with always being in a competition, always being in a challenge for myself, essentially. And I guess before I got into jiu-jitsu the way I'm into it now, when I was still living in Texas, I essentially didn't know what to do. I was missing that outlet for myself, and when I moved to North Carolina to start training and to kind of help out with the business here, I started to take interest in just training more and then eventually wanting to compete. So I remember, and you know the story, but whenever you invited me to go to Las Vegas to go to the American Nationals for IBJJF, I had no idea how big of a deal it was because, first of all, American Nationals is like the third biggest tournament, I guess, in the United States. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it's American Nationals, Pan Ams, and then Worlds. Mm-hmm. I had no idea how big of a deal this was. So Tony's like, yeah, this is a good first tournament for you to come out to. So I go to Vegas. Tony's competing too. Mm-hmm. I go to Vegas with Tony, and I remember fighting in the morning, like 10 a.m., and just getting my butt whooped. It was bad. And I remember feeling like the lights kind of start dimming down. I remember hearing nothing pretty much. Tony was coaching me, but I can hear nothing during my match. And just like a weird sound effect, everything just kind of, and it just came back, and I just started hearing everybody cheering, everybody screaming. And I was like, whoa, dude, I'm actually fighting someone right now. This is actually happening. And it's crazy the toll that takes on your mind and stuff. But I lost. Submitted by a guillotine.
That was your first tournament ever, right?
That was the first tournament ever. American Nationals, Las Vegas. Got offered drugs by somebody on the strip. Like, it was insane.
Did you accept the drug? I'm just kidding.
No, I did not. But I think that after that loss, I remember having a heart-to-heart with you where I was just like disappointed, and I didn't like that feeling of losing. Mm-hmm. It kind of, the past 2 years of not competing kind of came at me all at once, and it was kind of hard for me, and I didn't want to feel that feeling anymore, or ever again, per se. So I said, I'm gonna come back, I'm gonna fight again, I'm gonna keep doing this, I'm gonna get better at it. And I think that's what sparked me to continue doing jiu-jitsu and to be interested in competing.
Yeah, I forgot that was your first tournament. And it probably wasn't fair to you to throw you in the American Nationals, especially if it was your first tournament.
That's my villain origin story.
Yeah, because in all the other sports, you had a scrimmage, you had warm-ups, and you were able to build off of that. And I felt like, jiu-jitsu, I kind of just threw you to the pit and just let you fend for yourself. But you came out stronger. So that's my next question is, now you're competing actively. You've won some, you've lost some, but you've been doing pretty well. It seems that you really like nogi. I have never really talked to you about that, but I get the impression that you do like nogi a little bit more. So tell me, do you like nogi more? That's what I see.
Yeah, it's hard to say that I like it more because when it comes to training nogi, I just like the explosiveness, I like the quickness, and I do feel as if I do have a competitive edge over people just because I don't gas out as quick. So I just feel like I'm relentless. I just keep going. And I feel like, again, history with team sports like football, track, that conditioning helped me develop kind of like iron lungs to keep fighting. So I enjoy that. with the gi, it's a little bit slower paced, you know, so I still don't get as tired with the gi, but I can kind of pace myself. It goes slower. If you do fight someone, even your own size, even someone smaller than you, they can sometimes just tie you up, and it's hard to kind of get out of there.
So what does the mindset look like before you go into a competition? I have my perspective and my experience, but when I was competing at, you know, your purple belt, so when I was competing at purple belt, it was over 10 years ago. The scene was much different. It was still very competitive, but it wasn't what it is today. I believe what it is today is this very young sport that's growing, and it's expanding, and the United States has taken off, especially with no-gi and wrestling and flow grappling and who's number one and all these other, you know, fight to win, all these different promotions that are paying. So it's much bigger now is what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. What is the mindset that you hold or that you have when you get prepared for these tournaments?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of mindset, it's always about just making sure that, especially when right before you compete, the work's been done, right? Before you get to that point where right before you compete, right? When you know you're going to compete in 2 months or 3 months from now, it's always going to be a mindset of putting in the work, coming into class when you don't want to, especially. Mm-hmm. There's days that, you know, you wake up and you just feel like doing nothing. Maybe your body hurts. Even though your body may be hurting, it's not to say that you're supposed to train as hard as you can, but train as smart as you can, right? Even doing like rehabilitation for yourself is part of training, mm-hmm. I think. Mm-hmm. So ice baths, sauna, you know, just making sure that you're putting the work to take care of your body, but also push your body to its limit. Conditioning is super big. Now I'm kind of getting more into strength training just because it's an area that I knew that I needed to do. I just didn't do it. Mm-hmm. And I've seen results where as soon as I train or strength train for at least a week or two, I can already feel the results 3 weeks later, mm-hmm. where I feel stronger, I feel more stable. I feel like you can feel when you drive through an opponent or you drive through a takedown, you can feel everything kind of firing up. So connecting your mind and your body, you know, while you're training in the camp, you know, and just knowing that when you do compete, it's not a matter of, I'm going to, you know, not being cocky and saying like, oh, I'm going to win, but knowing that the result is necessarily like, it's a little bit out of your control. Yeah. Anything can happen in the match. You might even be the best player in the world, but you just have a bad ref who's not paying attention, or right? So in that regard, it's not in your control. But what is in your control is the consciousness to know that you are going to learn and you are going to grow from your experience. So that's where I'm at.
There's things that I've noticed too with your development. When you moved over here in 2018, I think it was spring 2018, I still remember that, you immediately began to pursue, I think, the jiu-jitsu lifestyle is what I call it. I call it jiu-jitsu lifestyle because really it's you could call it a profession, you could call it a career, you can call it different things, but when you really think about it, it's a lifestyle that really becomes part of who you are and how you eat, and you know, when you're training the next time and how intense you're training. I really saw growth with you. I was 18, 19, 20, I'm counting in my head, 4 years, right, where you really developed. And when you first came in, people were just shocked. Who is this kid, you know, tapping blue and purple belts? And I think there's a balance, right? Like, I made you start, do you remember the age? Was you 12?
I was probably like 10, I think.
10?
Because it was definitely before I hit puberty, because my sister hit puberty before me, and she was tearing me up. And that's
She was. No, I don't think it was that. I think she was bigger than you, taller than you.
Yeah.
You hadn't gone through your developed stage. She was very successful, competing and winning all the time. But to be fair, like, you started with me a few months, and then our mom would pull you out and say, hey, do the other sports, and you would do football and track and other activities, and then I would pull you in again for 2 months, and then you would go out. So to be fair, I wouldn't say that you've been training since you were 10 years old, but I can definitely say there are benefits to you understanding grappling, movement, wrestling, jiu-jitsu in your subconscious somehow, because I saw it as soon as you came back 2018. You picked up almost immediately where you were, and you would come in sometimes from middle school, you'd come in sometimes from high school, and you would put on the gi and you would tap out all the white belts, and you would tap out, I remember this, and you would tap out some of the blue belts, and you were a sophomore or junior in high school, I can't remember, it was around that time. And then some tough competitive blue belt would come and just get pissed off because you were submitting everybody and giving them a hard time. And so then he would tap you out and go super hard. And then you would, I don't know if you get discouraged or you go back to sports or maybe a combination of it. But then you would disappear a little bit. And I still remember very vividly, like you were getting hooked. And then I moved here. You would come visit. You would train for a month and you would like it. Do you remember this? Mm-hmm. And then you would go back. So I think what I'm trying to say is I think, you know, getting your family exposed to jiu-jitsu at a young age is really good. Even though they don't stay with it, I'm talking to the parents, to the spouses, to the siblings. Because to be fair, I think, I'm going to make up numbers here, but this is what I remember. I got you into jiu-jitsu and you were out 3 to 6 months later. And then you probably went again once a year later, again twice 2 years later, and then you went for maybe 1 month when you were in high school. Is that little phase? And then you went 1 month with me. So really total, at the most that you competed combined, not competed, but trained with me as a kid, I would argue 6 to 12 months at the most.
And I never did competitions
No.
until Vegas.
We would go see Mandy in the Valley, right?
Yeah,
we would travel to the Valley and she would win.
And she armbarred boys.
She would armbar boys. They had no female division. It was just, hey, you're going to fight boys. And I remember you in the stands because you were kind of shy and embarrassed. You hadn't gone through puberty yet. You were a little chubby.
Yeah, I remember that.
So all of this stuff, I still think it's important because I exposed you to it. You came back to it, and people were like, dude, Fernie is learning. And I said, yeah, he is. He's learning faster. And I believe it's the same thing if you teach a child soccer at age 10 and he plays 1 month out of the year. People are like, oh, 1 month is nothing. I disagree. I think 1 month a year for a kid, although it looks like nothing, when they're older, they'll pick up the physiological patterns, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they do studies on this. They hire the experts. I'm no expert, but I know there's research and data on this. When a child learns as they're young, the developmental stages are super important for these children to really subconsciously learn the patterns, the physiological patterns, the physical patterns, the way they shift, the way they move. And I think grappling is so unique that it's hard to get into a sport unless you're doing wrestling or judo. Like, grappling is just very different. And so when you're doing a grappling sport, I think it benefits you. And you were also lifting, and you were also in track and field winning titles there, and you were also in football scoring touchdowns, you know, at a lot of the football games. I remember seeing that. And I think all of that contributed to your not only physical development, but even your mental development, because having that anxiety, having that pressure, having that, you know, 10, 11 guys are trying to tackle you, right? Having that trauma added growth. Mm-hmm. And losing that race when, you know, you didn't win taught you to, it was like a tap. It taught you to be humble. It taught you to, like, dig deep and work hard in the weight room, in the track field, on the football field. And then you would see the, you know, really the fruits of your labor. You would see the touchdowns, and you would see the track, you know, titles that you won, and you would see the physique also. You were very strong, and you would eat well, and sometimes you would eat junk like we all do as teenagers. But I think all of that prepared you for where you are now, right? And then we didn't grow up in the richest neighborhood. We didn't grow up in the safest neighborhood. And I think that also contributed to your demeanor, your tenacity, your resilience. I think these are important words because they all are part of the whole unit. And so that's partially why I want to talk to you, because I wanted to hear your thoughts. And you gave me great thoughts on your jiu-jitsu perspective. But as your older brother and your coach, and hopefully your mentor, I think I'm like your mentor, right? Mm-hmm. I can see like how you've shifted and you've molded yourself and the people who have influenced you, like, you know, our parents, our family members, our coaches, your coaches, people that you've worked for in the workforce that have influenced you, the tough stuff you've gone through, the sports competition. I think it made you who you are into the person and competitor you are now. And it's pretty fascinating to think about it because, I mean, you could write a whole book on this stuff. Like, how do you prepare your children before you go out there? I think it's simple. I think you get them exposed to sports. I think you get them in grappling. I think you let them lose. You make sure they lose so they can learn how to win. And I think that will help teach them discipline and a lot more principles that'll help them build a better foundation for their youth into their adulthood. All right, so Fernie, what's next? What are your plans? What are your goals?
All right, so plans, goals. Right now I'm looking at, we talked a little bit about me liking Nogi a lot. So one of my plans is to do the Nogi Pan Ams, hopefully Nogi Worlds that's coming up at the end of this year. So I'm going to be training and just doing a camp to allow myself to prepare for that, And that's pretty much it.
I think you should do, I'm going to chime in, I think you should do Nogi Pans, Nogi Worlds, ADCC, do some super fights. I think the more you get into this exposure, I think you're really good. I honestly think. I'm not saying you're not good at gi. Gi's, you're good too, but I think your athleticism, and it's just, I like that word, your tenacity. Like the way you push favors your style for Nogi. And I think you have a lot of potential to, go out there and make a big name for yourself. So that would be my advice. My other advice would be to do things that I did when I was younger. I would travel and train at camps. We have Lucas in Charlotte, but you have a lot of opportunities to train with these people. That's my advice. If you guys ever have that opportunity, definitely travel and do a camp. It could be 2 days, it could be a month, it could be a week. I did a week camp, I did a few days camp. Get exposure to these guys.
For sure. I trained at Bruno Malfacini's when I went to Orlando to compete, and it was really nice to enter that atmosphere like of another Lion school, because I had only been ever like to Lucas's, which is great, amazing, right? But it was cool to be like at another Lion school and see like some of the similarities in the culture and stuff, and the training, super awesome training. So
awesome.
Yeah, we'll be
and
doing
then
that.
and then I would also advise you to do things that I've never done, and hopefully I do the Europeans, do the Brazilian nationals.
Yeah. I do. They're definitely on my radar. I want to do those tournaments.
You should. I think you would do really well, and I think you could travel a little bit to see the world out there, and I think you would do extremely well.
The London Open.
Yeah. So, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We had a lot of fun. We got to explore the mindset, competition, how childhood experiences can help make or break you. So parents, be very wise in your decision making. When you set your kids upon their journey, make sure you get them in sports, make sure you get them in grappling, and make sure you let them lose. And they learn to win when they learn to lose. I have a great example of my baby brother. I love him because he's been doing a great job learning all these life lessons, and it's helped build him to where he's at now. And the best part is he's only getting started. So if you guys like this episode, do me a favor, like, comment, give us some more options for names. We're still thinking about the podcast. We'll have Marshall Mind on here very soon. He's been super active with the school. It's been awesome to be part of the journey. We'll also leave Fernie's information so you can follow him as well and see his journey in jiu-jitsu and his next competitions. And tune in for the next episode. Hope you guys also enjoyed our little sparring match. So until next time, guys, keep training.
So to show you guys how we roll, I now go with Fernie, my brother. So I immediately pull guard, only because I had a hard training session that day, and I didn't really plan to train again, so that's why I didn't bring my board shorts or my grappling shorts. So instead I'm wearing my gi bottoms, and so I immediately pull guard, start sucking in that leg to single leg or one leg X. And Fernie does a good job defending, chases the front headlock. I have the underhook, so I'm working the underhook, trying to wrestle up. He does a good job with the whizzer, controls the head. He's continuing to put pressure forward. Notice how he's using his arms and his frames and even his knee. So then I go back to De La Hiva, and then I come back to a sit-up position and try to rework my hook from the outside. He keeps imposing more pressure, switches right to left to right, and does a good job controlling my ankles. So I try to recenter, get my hips underneath him, and he does a good job underhooking my leg. So then I stand up, to try to leverage a takedown or a better guard pull. He does a good job going for my single leg. He times that perfectly as I try to come for a inside heel hook, rather outside heel hook. He's able to counter. I arm drag, come back up, and I start working his back. He goes for Tano Toshi, lands a Tano Toshi, and takes me down with a Tano Toshi. So I'm able to recompose my guard, arm drag again to a single leg, and then I switch to his back. I jump to his back. He keeps spinning, and I'm able to follow, and then I climb all the way to the upper back. I control the position, try to keep the back. He does a good job trying to take me outside, so I switch, spin all the way to the hips. I check the time to see how much more time we have. I'm able to drill my shoulder. He rolls into a beautiful leg lock attack. I leg drag behind, fade the ankle. This is a really good flow, by the way. I really enjoyed this roll. Fernie's a beast. So I go outside saddle and start attacking that leg. He does a good job falling to his hip, putting pressure behind my hamstring. He goes knee cut. I try to keep his hand away. I try to go all the way up to the back. He uses it to try to get my back. I keep my back on the mat. Really good scramble. Put him back in half guard. I go deep half. He goes underhook. Does really, really well with that underhook. I recompose my guard. Kick the back of his leg. And I go reverse de la Hiva to basic bolo. All the way to bolo here. He's able to scramble. I connect it to a leg drag. Hugging his hip. He feeds my leg. Starts attacking the leg lock. I fall to my right side with my post to the leg drag, extending my left leg. He tries to repummel underneath. He does a good job attacking that leg. I put all my weight on my left leg through that leg drag, push down at his knee. He frames. So I use my left knee to pressure down on his top knee, windshield wipe, and go to side control. He does a good job recomposing, putting me on top. I go for a bolo, a spinning bolo, but he's a lot heavier and bigger than me, so it's hard for me to get the angle. So he does a good job scarecrowing out, underhooks my leg again. So I go back to leg drag. He sucks in my leg, goes for a leg lock, does a really good job. So I lock up the triangle so that way he doesn't finish that leg lock. He comes up to the senkaku, repummels, and starts feeding that knee cut. I recircle, go back to arm drag, and now I'm in a single leg. He whizzes, he comes back, pulls guard, sucks in that leg again. He's doing a great job sucking in that leg. I have a handful of students waiting for the next class to start. I flip over and go all the way past 50-50. I block that bottom arm. I'm underhooking the top arm. I start going for the straight arm lock. I'm controlling top pressure, and the bell rings. Such a great roll with Fernie. That was fun. Hope you all enjoyed that.